Welcome to episode 297 of the Ski Podcast, and thanks for joining us for the latest of our Winter Olympic episodes. I'm your host, Iain Martin, and today I am delighted to welcome back Winter Olympian and TNT commentator, Emily Sarsfield. Hi, Emily, how are you?
Hello, Iain. I'm very well, thank you. In the mountains at the moment, which is all good.
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? You know, you've gone out to Meribel since we last spoke. How was the snow today?
Yeah, lovely, actually. It is lovely. And we had some sunshine today, but there's a bit of snow due to come in this week and it's getting a little bit colder. So that'll be great for the slopes. But I like fair weather skiing at the moment.
Well, I'm in Nice at the moment. So we've both gone over to France since we last spoke. But let's summarise. You know, when we had our first podcast, we talked about what was coming up this weekend. And it strikes me really that there is only, well, the biggest story before the game started was Lindsey Vonn, and perhaps it's still the biggest story so far, if for the wrong reasons. I mean, I guess all of our listeners must know that Lindsey Vonn crashed in the women's downhill on Sunday, and it was very nasty. I think the news is now that she has fractured her leg and had to have an operation. Did you watch it live, Emily?
I was actually teaching skiing at the time, so I missed the live. I caught it as soon as I got back. I think it was like 30 minutes later. Yeah, super sad, but she's an absolute warrior. Her comeback no one can look at it negatively. Like what she actually achieved in that comeback and across her career is just like phenomenal. It's just so unfortunate. And I think because there was such a spotlight on her, it obviously made it's even more of a highlight. But I just wish her all the best for the recovery. And I truly hope that we see another comeback from her.
Blimey. Okay, well, we'll see about that. I was watching it live. It was shortly before I went up to London to get my train down here to Nice. And really, it was awful. It was one of those things where I felt the pain. I had to look away from the screen. And I don't know if you managed to see the BBC coverage, but Chemmy Alcott evidently was in tears. She was clearly very upset by the whole thing, because when they cut to her to start off with, they didn't show her on the screen. She was, I thought, you could tell, really upset. Now, I actually interviewed Chemmy on Saturday prior to the race, and I asked her about Lindsey, and I've got a whole segment that potentially I would include here, but I'm not going to, because I know she was super upset. We're going to hear from her later, but it really was, I don't know. I think she described it as brutal. It was just so painful to watch. I mean, that doesn't take it away from the courage that she had to come back. And for her compatriot, Breezy Johnson, possibly one of the best names in skiing since Peekaboo Street, is now a gold medalist. I think maybe it was difficult for her at the bottom, and certainly only one skier after Lindsey Vonn managed to get up onto the podium. I think, the course probably warmed up, but a bit of a challenge.
Breezy always kind of goes under the radar a little bit, but she's obviously had her own fair share of knee injuries herself, probably 3 or 4. And for her comebacks, you can never write the girl off. So I think it's really cool to see her back on the podium. I remember training out in in Argentina, and she was there a few years ago. Well, let's say a few years ago. It's probably more like 9 years ago. I don't know. She was quite quiet, but she just had this grit about her training.
So it might have been difficult for you with your travelling, but the men's downhill, did you see any of the action?
I didn't get to see the main highlights of the men's, unfortunately.
Okay, well, I can tell you that in our last episode, 293, BBC commentator Graham Bell shared his predictions. And I have to say that while he did say Odermatt was a favourite, he did pick Von Allmen as his main challenger, and Giovanni Franzoni and Dominic Paris as likely podium finishers. So I think in the sweepstake, Graham Bell would have done very well. Shortly after the race, I actually mentioned earlier, spoke to BBC's Chemmy Alcott, and she gave me her view on the race. So we're recording today on Saturday the 7th, just after the men's downhill took place this morning in Bormio. Now, Odermatt was a hot favourite, but it was his Swiss teammate, Von Allmen, who won the gold. Apart from 0.7 of a second, what was the difference between them, would you say?
I think Odermatt overcooked it. I think he relied too much on his technical ability and finished off some of the really important turns, whereas Von Allmen found the 4 lane. Von Almen, I've been tipping him every World Cup for Ski Sunday this year. But today, he's been wild this season. I mean, he's ended up in the nets and thankfully walked away so many times, especially in Super G. But today, he had this like precision, this control, this confidence. And what was different between him and the rest of the field was that he made speed, he built speed. Everyone else on that hill carried the speed really well, and we saw people in different sections getting closer. But straight from the get-go, he built speed, and I thought it was just awesome. I love the podium. I mean, to have 2 Italians, 2 and 3, you know, the new guard and the old guard, and all the stories and the passion surrounding it.
Well, that actually was going to be my next question, because the Italians pushed Odermatt off the podium completely. Now, do you think home advantage can pull you down the hill faster?
I mean, home advantage when you're Dominic Paris and you're the king of Bormio and you've won that 6 times in downhill. I mean, he intimately knows every bit of terrain. And you could see that on the top. He was actually unbelievable on the top 2/3. He was charging, he used all of his power, he was keeping really good snow contact, but he ran out of gas. He completely, coming on the San Pietro steep to the run out to the finish, you could see he was standing up, he was inclined, he couldn't hold it. And everyone's like, well, why did he go less hard at the top? I'm like, well, because that's his strength. He has to tap into his strength in the Olympic Games.
Well, it was fantastic. I enjoyed your analysis afterwards as well. The knuckles to buckles. I hadn't heard that aphorism, if that's what it is before, but that's how you win a downhill, right?
Well, I mean, that's actually the move that all of us would make. But what Von Almen did was different. I mean, he did the knee clasp, which is incredibly risky. You have to be so strong. It means you're, like I said earlier, you're this like bullet in orbit. But if things go wrong in that position, they go really wrong. You've got no arms out to be stable or to make any corrections. So it was very risky. And that, for me, was where he won that gold.
Let's move on to the women's ski slopestyle. Now, the qualifiers for this were on at the same time as the men's downhill on Saturday. But I discovered a great feature on Discovery Plus TNT, where you can watch all the action on one screen and just change the commentary around. I'd never seen that before. Very cool.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good, isn't it? Like, it basically, if you want to catch a little bit of the curling freestyle, it's just all there in front of you. But I've not worked out how to switch the commentary, so that's smart. I'm going to work that out now.
And actually, this is something that you mentioned to me kind of off air earlier, is that some people are sort of, a bit frustrated. Maybe they don't have TNT or Discovery Plus, but there's a good kind of monthly deal that you can just sign up for just for a month if you want to watch the Olympics.
Yeah, definitely, because they're doing 24 hours of the Olympics. So basically it's $3.99 for the month. And you get all of the Olympic action. And their whole thing is they're trying to cover absolutely everything. So whether it be the training runs or the finals, you get the lot. And that split screen option is obviously a really good one.
Yeah, the split screen thing was great because I was able to be following the men's downhill because the leading racers have gone down. I could see if their splits were looking good when they were coming down the hill. I could flick back over to the downhill while I was watching slopestyle. And that was the qualifying. Kirsty Muir qualified in 3rd place for the ski slopestyle final. The final was today. It was around lunchtime, and listeners will probably be aware that she missed out by 0.41, an incredibly small margin. Did you see any of that action or the interviews, Emily?
Yeah, I did, and heart goes out to her because there's been a lot of kind of pressure probably on these girls, these kind of 5 golden girls from the UK to get those medals. And she's a young athlete, but also she's been on the podium pretty much every World Cup this season, just won X Games gold. So she has got the talent, So it's just, but those other girls also are extremely amazing skills. Like Mathilde Bromont was the reigning Olympic champion. So it's not as if kind of it's Kirsty Muir to lose. She's still got to fight it out with those other athletes. So obviously she didn't hit her first run how she wanted to. So then the pressure kind of builds. So then she has to kind of go out there and hit a run. Eileen Gu and both Mathilde Bromont got really high scores in run 1. So they could just kind of see if they could better it. It was heartbreaking to see her so devastated, but I I totally understand that. The worst place to come, isn't it? Fourth, you miss on that podium. But
Yeah.
Woodsy was commentating on TNT, and obviously we know Woodsy, the absolute legend in that free ski world. And he, in his second Olympics, was fourth. So he totally got it. He was just kind of like, and he sent her this like really nice little message over air to be like, look, I know how you're feeling right now, but everyone's so proud of you anyway. At the end of the day, we're from a lowland nation with no mountains, and she's gone out there and she's got fourth best in the world, period.
That is, it doesn't, I didn't hear his commentary. It doesn't surprise me to hear it. I actually really quite enjoyed his commentary on the slopestyle. You know, normally I'm more listening to Ed Leigh and Tim Woolwood on BBC, but I liked his style.
Yeah, I mean, James he's a great commentator. He knows his stuff. He's like a legend in that world.
I enjoy watching him. I'm obviously really disappointed for Kirsty, and I think the saddest bit is, no one wants to see anyone upset, and she was evidently in tears as well at the bottom when she was being interviewed by Jenny Jones. So I guess the positive side of things is that she does have a big air to compete in as well. So she gets a second bite at the cherry, so to speak. Talking about a big air, in about half an hour or so, just after we finish recording, Mia Brooks will be going into the Snowboard Big Air final. Now, she qualified in third place. I did ask Ed the other day what he thought of her main competitors. So let's have a little listen to that. Right. So we've got the Big Air coming up shortly. Mia Brooks will be representing Team GB in the snowboarding. You know, she has a great record. She's coming back from the X Games from a win there. She's won the only Big Air on the World Cup circuit this winter. But in the Worlds in March, she was out of the medals. And if I recall correctly, all of the top four then were Japanese. I might be wrong on that. But I wondered who you felt the main competition were in the Snowball Big Air.
The women's slopestyle and big air snowboarding is so tight. The level of talent in there is so high at the moment, and they're very, very different types of snowboarder, which makes it such a fantastic watch. Mia's got a crystal globe. I think 2 crystal globes in big air, if I'm right, 23 and 24. But she doesn't specialise one way or the other. She can ride slopestyle or big air. But I think X Games, just before the games, the Olympic Games, we saw Mia in bronze. We saw Kokomo Morassi in gold and Zoe Sadowski in silver. And that is a very accurate representation of where these women sit at the moment. The other 2 names I would throw in the ring for that are Mari Fukada and Anna Gasser. I'll also chuck in Reiwa Iwabuchi. There's 6 women there who are incredibly strong. As you mentioned, Iain, we've got 3 Japanese women. Of those, Kokomo Morassi is probably the most courageous. She rides chin forward and has 0 fear. She also has the biggest trick of all of them, a backside 1620 triple cork. So her head goes under the board 3 times and she rotates 4.5 times. It is a huge trick. Absolutely huge.
That is fascinating. And listeners might remember from our previous interview that you said 1620 is the top end of the range for the women, right?
Yeah. Right under that, you've got the 1440. Zoe Sadowski-Synnott has a backside 1440 and Mia has a cab or a switch frontside 1440. What's interesting here is that Mia's is the most consistent. She was the first woman to land a 1440 in competition, and she won. She may have only got bronze in big air, but she got gold in slopestyle. And she didn't need her 3rd run to win the gold, but she landed a 1260 into a 1440 both times. Like, she has those 2 tricks absolutely locked down. And big air is not just about one trick. You have to do 2 tricks and they have to be in different directions. And that's what's critical here. You're going to see it's not just about that single biggest trick. You've got to have consistency and the variety in the direction you spin. So Kokomo does have a 1440 in another direction. Zoe has a 1260, but they're going to have to be perfect.
So it's kind of interesting. By the time you listen to this, listener, that event will be over. So we'll know how Ed's got on with his guesses. I watched the men's snowboard big air on Saturday night. That was just insane. I really can't believe the type of action that these guys do. It was gold and silver for Japan. Now, Kira Kimura won with and I only know this because I looked it up, switch backside 1980 mute. Now, that is interesting. Now, Emily, do you know what's wrong with that description?
Does that 360 go into 1980?
No, it's because if you listen to episode 296, the last episode that I did with Ed Leigh, which I published yesterday, I think, he went through all of the tricks and how they describe them and how they break down. And it was really interesting. I had never heard this before, but the mute grab has been effectively archived because that was a skateboarding move, and it was named after a guy called Mike Weddle, who was a deaf, not mute skateboarder. And so it's meant to be described as a Weddle. So Fiss got that wrong. It should have been a switch backside 1980 Weddle, but there you go. Now, we haven't even mentioned the opening ceremony. You have actually been to an opening ceremony of a Winter Olympics. You were in Pyeongchang back in 2018. Did you catch any of the action from this Winter Olympics opening ceremony?
Yeah, I did. I tried to watch it. It was obviously a very different one to kind of Pyeongchang because in Pyeongchang, everything was all in one stadium, whereas kind of because we got the split sites in Milan Cortina, we've got people in Livigno, people in Cortina, people in Bormio. So they're split kind of across the different areas. So I thought that was a little bit because you've not got your full team together. So that must have been a little bit interesting, but they broadcasted it really well. So it looked really great on TV, and it was nice to kind of hear the stories of the flag bearers and just to see how happy they all were. I mean, the months leading up to the Olympic Games, you're so stressed out on A, keeping yourself healthy, B, making sure you've qualified. And there's just so many things which you're kind of just like almost a robot and kind of doing and making sure you do everything right to get your possible best chance to kind of be there at the games. And then almost you have this like relief, and the stress can kind of like come off your shoulders and just drain away because you've made it. And that one chance at the opening ceremony, obviously sometimes you can't make it because obviously if your event's the immediate day after or 2 days after, it's quite a long period because you're in a holding pen for a couple of hours beforehand. But that's the kind of one chance where you come together as a team and you're all put in this kind of like amazing opening ceremony gear, and you see all the different teams in all of their different get-up. I mean, the Brazilian get-up was pretty impressive and what have you. But that is when you kind of like, oh my gosh, we made it. Like we did it. And all our
I thought it was amazingly well coordinated, the way that they managed to go from Milan to Cortina to Livigno and have the teams going through exactly at the right moment. I mean, I did speak to someone who is in Livigno who told me it was a bit anticlimactic there. It was just like a bunch of athletes walking through an arch and then that was it. But, I thought it was really well coordinated. And, I thought the whoever was behind it, I can't recall the name, they should be very proud of themselves because it was fantastic. I also asked Chemmy Alcott what she thought of the opening ceremony.
I mean, I thought it was probably the most inclusive opening ceremony I've seen around the people and around the athletes. I thought it was all centred around that. I thought it was great that they had the satellite options for people to be involved. I've only ever been to one opening ceremony when I competed because there was always such a long journey in order to get there. And I made that worthwhile in Sochi because it was my last one. I wanted that kind of sprinkling, that stardust of magic Team GB. So I went there then. I thought Bocelli was ridiculous, so cool. And then to bring Tomba in, for me, that's iconic for me. I think I was probably in the studio the most excited about that. I don't think anyone else was that like, who are these guys? There was a lot of dancing. I loved the Icelandic boy band who also came out in white doing their thing. Sitting there with Claire, we do rate a lot of the outfits. There's a lot of that. So I thought the Team GBs, the Tom Daley scarves and hats are amazing. I did like the detail of the Union Jacks down the front. But Brazilian, I mean, Lucas Brathen actually helped design that opening outfit. And as it came out and it was white and big, you just thought that's great. And then when he opened it, and it was the Brazilian flag on the inside twirling, I was just like, wow.
I've seen a lot of puffer jackets before, but I've never seen puffer shorts. That was their uniform, wasn't it?
Yes. Actually, some of my favourite outfits were the locals who walked out with the placards for the countries, the kind of dark goggles and the silver, whatever that was. I was just like, this is Milan.
Yeah. Can I ask, have you watched anything else? Anything else been on your radar during the games?
Well, obviously we get a lot of curling, don't we? And as much as I know next to nothing about curling, there's something quite fascinating about it. And obviously GB is impressive.
Live right now, it's 3-3 between Great Britain and Sweden in the mixed doubles semi-final.
Yeah.
Evidently, if they win that, they're guaranteed a medal. So we're hoping that will happen. I watched a tiny bit of ice hockey because it was on before the Slopestyle or the Snowboard Big Air, I think. I watched a bit of ice skating, but I turned that off really quickly. It just wasn't really of interest to me. But you never know. Maybe I'll get into curling as it goes on. Snoop Dogg turned up at the curling and asked for a selfie with our team, apparently.
Oh, really? Yeah, well, he's everywhere around the games. He's kind of USA's biggest fan. But I think there's something really fascinating about the ice skating, but also when you watch these little documentaries as well, which they've got on TNT at the moment, there's the one about the free slalom boys and the girls and stuff, but they've got them on ice skating as well. Some of them are married, and you think, how do they do that day in, day out, training together, married to one another? And you think, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, you still haven't tempted me. I'm not sure I'm going to be watching the ice skating. So we're going to be back again tomorrow when we're going to see, hopefully, be celebrating a Team GB medal with Mia Brooks. But after today, well, let's just keep our fingers crossed and see what happens. That's it for now. If you're a first-time listener, can I recommend you subscribe to the Ski Podcast so you never miss an episode, because we're having quite a lot of these so far. And if you enjoyed this episode and want to help us, don't forget you can use code Ski Podcast when you book your ski hire at insportrent.com, and it'll save yourself some money. I'll put a link in the show notes for that. Right, for now, I'd like to thank my special guest today, Emily Sarsfield. Thank you very much, Emily.
Thank you.
And finally, listener, thank you for joining us wherever in the world you're listening right now. And until next time, goodbye.